Welcome, everyone, to the Leadership in Quarters podcast, the interview series where leaders come to share their perspectives on different leadership topics. I'm Josh Seldin, and today's guest is Dr. Christie McMullen. Dr. Christie McMullen is a podcaster, best-selling author, CEO, but more importantly, she is a wife, mother, avid boot camper, friend, and joy creator. She helps make work fun because people quit things that aren't fun. So welcome.
Thank you. I am super excited to be here, Josh. This is going to be fun, guaranteed.
It is. I'm super excited to have you because I feel like in today's day and age, fun and work just don't go together, and it's going to blow people's minds, I'm sure, with what you're going to share today.
Absolutely true. As a matter of fact, so I have a podcast too. It's called Productive Joy. And ChatGPT and I came up with that title because I wanted there to be something with work and fun, because I don't believe the two have to be mutually exclusive. And it came up with Productive Joy. And I'm like, that's it. We need more productive joy in our lives, because if we don't have it, we walk away. We
Right.
don't keep doing things that are not bringing us joy, but we ask people to do that at work all the time.
Have you ever met somebody who has a hobby who's just, I absolutely hate this and I don't find any joy in it, but I'm going to keep doing it?
No, that's not a thing. That's not how that works. By nature, our bodies are constantly seeking that dopamine, and we can't get it if the thing that we're doing doesn't bring us some sort of fun.
And I feel like, unlike a hobby, which people feel like they have so much control to just walk away from it, you can't really do that with work. And you just feel like I'm forced to be here. I need the paycheck. I need safety. I need to provide for my family, whatever you want to call it. And they're like, if work's not fun, I guess that's how it is. I'm just going to deal
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. And I actually took it upon myself to define fun, because the thing that I also realized is, like, I'm 100% extrovert. I love humans. I want to talk to all the humans, but my introverted friends hate the things that I love. Fun doesn't mean exactly the same thing to everyone, but I think my definition does work. So here's my definition of fun.
Perfect.
Fun means that people feel valued and appreciated. Fun means that people have a voice and they're allowed to use it. And fun means that people are able to leverage their talents for the greater good. Although I also mean that you have to make people laugh and give them some sort of reason to want to be there, that you also have to make them feel valued and listen to them and then let them be a part of the solution instead of assuming that they don't have any value add. That's really what I mean when I say fun.
I love that because it's specific enough to give you that definition that you need, but it's general enough to meet the needs of, like you said, the introverts and extroverts.
Yeah.
Because everybody thinks with extroverts are these people who can go make friends with a wall. They can go
Yeah.
have a conversation with anybody and everything. And introverts are these stereotypical people who just sit at their computers and they don't want to talk to anybody. But it's so much more than that, because it's so much about how you regain your energy. It's not that
Exactly.
you don't want to be around people, but extroverts can regain their energy by interacting with people, and introverts regain their energy by going back into their own little bubble and regaining their energy in a quieter area. And your definition allows both of those things to be true depending on the individual.
Yeah. And that's the whole point. We have all different kinds of humans working for us at any given time. And the reality is that we want them to keep wanting to work for us, and we'd like them to give us the best version of themselves. But that can only happen when we've created spaces where people know that it's safe to ask questions and to not know answers, and that they get to be a part of that bigger solution. So, yeah, honestly, I've never seen it be as important as it is right now, and yet it's always been such an important part of life,
Mhm.
is just seeing your humans for who they are and letting them thrive in their environment.
I feel like it kind of ties into the thought process of soft skills, which has always been important over time. We say it is, but it's morphing now. It's morphing into necessary skills. It's morphing into things that have to be true today and not are nice to haves to be true today.
Exactly. Our company is actually called Intentionality Group, and we help bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be.
Hmm.
And really, what you just said is so important. It's recognizing that without this part, and yes, soft skills is what it's always been called, but it's the human aspect. It's that
Right.
human first leadership. It's recognizing that without the humans, none of the stuff gets done. And yes, AI is definitely changing the game, but there still have to be the humans. And we forget that, and we want to make the most perfect widget. The problem there is the widgets can't be the most perfect they can be unless the humans are cared for first. But people get it backwards and they think, oh, we can't waste time on that, or we don't need the touchy feely woo crap. No, hold on. You actually do.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing you could do to improve your bottom line. The tens of thousands of dollars that people waste by not investing in their people is really eye opening when you put the numbers in front of people.
Yeah, it's like you always go back to those numbers when people talk about turnover and we had the Great Recession and everything, and less headcount is fine. It's all this money. But at the same time, when you look at how much recruiting fees are and all these other things, it's all of that background money that isn't right in front of everybody, not the bottom line, but it still significantly impacts the bottom line of all companies.
It does. And it also significantly impacts how great the product that you're creating can be. Because if you're not asking the people, what would you do differently or how would you set this up a different way, then what happens is we make a lot of assumptions. And
Mm.
I don't know about you, but my 12th grade English teacher taught me that assume makes an ASS out of you and me.
It does.
And that shout out to Charles C. Brown, bless her sweet soul. She helped me realize that when we make assumptions, we are wrecking the opportunity to actually learn something because we think we already know it. And that's what happens a lot in business when we don't listen to the people who are doing the work and
Right.
we just make a whole bunch of assumptions, especially as leaders, because somehow, somewhere we learned that we were supposed to have all the answers, and that's just not true.
Yeah, I know I don't.
No, me either. And you know what? I don't want them. I
No.
know I am so much better when I take the time to ask my team for their opinion, for their input. Like, how would you handle this? And then when they say, I'll say, okay, go handle it. They're
Right.
like, really? Me? Yeah, you. Because you're going to be a whole lot better at it than I am.
Yeah.
It takes a strong, self-confident leader to be able to do that. We all do by nature think, oh, I'm supposed to know all of this and I'm supposed to have all the answers. And the best leaders I've ever worked with are the ones that know they don't.
It's knowing you don't and then intentionally surrounding yourself with great leaders that do
Yeah.
and then empowering them to go do it. Like you said, it doesn't do me any good to just surround myself with people and then still think my ego, I'm the only one who needs to have those answers. You just tell me what they are. It's then empowering them to go off and do great things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So
Definitely.
I feel like you've touched on some of these things already, but I was wondering what are some of the most common ways that leaders unintentionally make life and work harder for their people instead of making it more productive or joyful for them to work?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is not knowing them very well. And I actually do a fun personality test. I actually did a TEDx on this. And it's, are you a paperclip, a magnifying glass, a teddy bear, or a slinky? There are hundreds of different personality tests that you can do.
Mhm.
This one does not require a test, and people can usually latch on pretty quick. Do you want to hear what those four mean?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, okay. So our paper clips hold everything together. They are super linear in the way they think. They tend to be the to-do list maker, the sense maker, the one that's we need to do this and this. So those are our paper clips. Our magnifying glasses, though, are the ones that actually get it done. So they'll take that to-do list and they're like, oh no, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. They zoom in on the details and they're very good at accomplishing things, sometimes to the detriment of the human side because they're very task oriented. Then we have our teddy bears. Our teddy bears are the human people. They're the ones that want to love the humans. They probably would ask you things like, when's the last time you took a break? Have you had any water today? How are you feeling? And those teddy bears are super important because without them, we tend to miss when people are starting to burn out. And then we have our slinkies, and slinkies are fun. If you
Yeah.
think about a slinky, its job is to entertain you. But the slinkies are the idea people, the big idea people, the ones that are like, we could do this or this. Problem being that they desperately need a paperclip in their life to actually accomplish the
Mm.
thing they set out to do. So, what I believe happens in many industries, actually just about everywhere, personally and professionally, is people don't pause and go, okay, that person's approaching it this way. That probably means they're a magnifying glass. I'm a slinky. I need you as a paperclip to help me accomplish this goal. So, step one is knowing your people. Step two is remembering what they're good at. I think so frequently, the biggest mistake that leaders make is they assume that just because it's in that person's job title or job description, that they have to be the one to do it.
Right.
And I don't believe that to be true. It's the simple way to do things, but it's not the best way to do things. So, what if you got to know your people first, and then you took that information and you turned it into action by actually capitalizing on the fact that my paper clips are really good at spreadsheets and they not only understand them, they love them. Like that's where they thrive. let them do the spreadsheet and put your Slinky on the phone.
Mm,
But we don't do that. And so your question was really, what's the number one leadership mistake? I think it's not letting people shine in their space. Because going back to my definition of fun, it's fun when I know that my talents are being used.
yeah.
And if you took the time to know what I'm good at, then you'd be like, oh my gosh, that's such a Christy thing. Let Christy do that, and I will do this. That's when people really thrive. So I think that's the number one. There are others, but that's the biggest one.
I think that's so important because it gets into, I'd say, a difficult area from what I've seen in business where you have to balance, obviously, the individual, getting to know them, what they're good at. But what you balance it with is what I see has gotten so popular now is that I want to put you in a growth role or a growth area. And yes, you may not be good at spreadsheets, and historically you don't do them because you are a slinky, but I want to make you grow. So I'm going to put you in here, whether it
Yes,
plays to your strengths, whether it's what you want to go do, I'm going to put you there. And now, like you said, now it's part of your job title. Now it's
yeah,
expected of you. And now I'm going to continue to ask you to do something that doesn't give you energy that you're maybe not good at. Yeah, you can get a little better at it. But at the end of the day, if it's not what you're going to do ongoing, it's not doing you a service, but I'm now making you responsible for it.
I know you said it. I think when we want our people to grow, we challenge them. But sometimes the challenges that we're giving them are really just obstacles. They're not actually going to help that person become a better leader, a better whatever. And I think that's the mistake we make is just the, oh, if you can do that, you must be able to do that. It actually happens a lot when people get promoted. So if I was a really good salesman and I was able to just sell anybody anything, then I'm going to make you, now you're so good at this, the head of
Mhm.
sales. No, that's a different skill set. And yes, I was a really good salesperson standalone, but I don't know how to manage people. So it's also recognizing that just because you're good at one thing does not automatically translate into being good at something else. Doesn't mean you can't get good, just means that it's probably not going to be too natural.
And then you get back to the intentionality of everything. So, yes, you may have been the best salesperson there. If I'm going to go put you in a people leader role, which you may not have needed to be a salesperson, I now need to be intentional and say, what are all the skills I should start building in you now before I throw you into the fire and have you go lead all these people? Because now I'm not only going to negatively impact you, I can negatively impact all these other people you're now managing that you don't know how to manage.
Exactly. And that just is really on you. Like
Exactly.
at some point, you have to say, I did this. Oops. And I think that's also the sign of a really great leader is somebody who can say, oops. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't do that very well. I screwed that up. I didn't handle it the way I should. Let's fix it. But I think there's also a pride in a lot of leaders that say, I can't admit to my team that I
Mhm.
made a mistake. The problem with that is that then your team can't admit that they've made a mistake either.
Right.
And now you've got a real problem on your hands. So, one of the major things that I do with teams is I help them create environments that are safe, logical, fun, and memorable. So, we talked about the fun, which is super important, but those other three are really important too. So, the safe is psychological safety, not don't trip over a thing safety.
Yeah.
But that psychological safety means people can make mistakes, they can ask questions, they don't have to know the answers. You have failure parties instead of shunning people when they
Right.
don't do something. That psychological safety, that's
Mhm.
first. But then the logical, we miss. So the logical is things like it's this simple phrase you have to have a plan, you have to stick to the plan, but you can't be the only person who knows the plan. So often, things like this will happen. I'm sure you've never done it, I'm sure nobody
Never.
listening has ever done it, but I need you in my office in an hour. What happens during that hour? You're just totally panicked. You're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. It's not like you would go, oh my gosh, I bet they're going to give me a raise. I can't wait to get in there. No, you're automatically thinking about all the things you must have done wrong. You can fix that by being logical. I need you in my office in an hour. It's to talk about the Smith file because they're coming in at 3 o'clock and I know you've been working on it for the last 2 months. So much better. But all of us have tensed up when we've gotten that text message that said, I need 15 minutes. Oh gosh, for what? Whether it's from your spouse or from your boss, doesn't matter. You start to
Yeah.
panic. So, logical. The
Yeah.
fun we mentioned, you have to make it fun because our neurons only fire when there's some sort of emotion tied to
Mhm.
what we're doing. But we don't evoke emotion in people. We're just like, do the thing. There's a problem there. So we help people evoke emotion. And then the memorable is probably the most forgotten. I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and thinks, I want to be completely forgettable today. That's the thing I want. No, but we have to sprinkle, splash, flood, drip, drip information if we want
Mhm.
people to really get it. So, what does that mean? The sprinkle, splash is like a preview to a movie. So, if you're going to have a meeting on a Thursday, you're going to send an email out on a Monday that says, we're having this meeting on Thursday. Here's the three things we're going to cover. Sprinkle. The
Right.
splash might be a little more detail with those three things on Wednesday. The meeting is the flood. That's when all the information comes at you super fast. Problem with a flood, you used to live in Florida,
Yeah.
all that water's lost in runoff.
Right.
Information you're flooding people with cannot be absorbed until you drip drip. That's what comes off the trees after the rain. So the drip is the follow-up email with all the next steps, or the who will do what by wins, or it's the phone call after that says, hey, how did that really go? And are we doing okay? How do you feel? So understanding that in order to be memorable, you can't be a one and done is also the biggest part of the leadership journey that we tend to forget. So that's what we teach people. That's actually what my book is about. It's called Learning Can Stick because I'm an educator by trade. I have been teaching people things literally my whole life, but professionally for 26 years.
Wow.
And what I know to be true is when you create those four conditions, people can learn from you. And I would argue we're all teaching people things all day long, whether we mean to or not. And some of us are bad at it because we don't know how. So we help people get better.
That is so great because people don't realize that humans aren't sponges. We always say, oh, yeah, babies are sponges and everybody are sponges because they just take in everything, but they're not immediate sponges. And we don't do these sprinkle drips in the beginning. And we have this flood meeting where we
Yeah.
just go and turn on the fire hose and flood everybody with all this water and information. And you don't give people time to assess and analyze and think about it. And then you get into this situation where I was talking to one of my other guests a couple weeks ago where everybody goes the new thing. I feel like it's the new lingo where silence is concurrence.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? No, because everybody's still processing. Of course, nobody has any questions. And then you leave
Yeah.
and nobody has any idea what's going on. And you
Right.
don't have the follow ups and you don't have the previews. You just have the flood.
Right.
And it goes back to what you said. I'm the only one who knows the plan because nobody else does. And if I don't have a psychologically safe environment, nobody's going to
Yep.
question it because my first reaction, at least their assumption is going to be, how don't you know what's going on? We just met for an hour and I told you
I
everything.
know. I was very clear.
Yeah. If I were in your shoes, I would know what's going on. So how dare you? And
Yeah.
and everything you just said just builds up and supports each other.
Very much. The thing we forget most is the person doing the talking is the person doing the learning. So,
Mhm.
like right now, you and I are talking and we're doing a lot of learning,
Yep.
and the listeners are listening. But if they don't talk about any of this stuff themselves, they won't remember. They'll think, oh, that she was entertaining, whatever. But they have to internalize it. That's where that drip comes in. That's where they see a clip and go, oh, yeah, I remember that. That was good. It's the way our brains function. If you think about it, most of us have zero training in
Right.
how the brain functions. And we do things the way they've been done to us. So we run meetings the way we've seen them run, which is I'm in charge. I'm going to do all the talking. You will sit and you will listen. Thank you very much. Take really good notes
Yeah.
because I expect you to go do all of the things. And then we don't send a follow up. So, like at the end of every meeting that I have, I do a who will do what by when. And the idea behind that is just let's be really clear on the expectations that we have for what you should be doing. That's simple, not always easy, but simple. Instead of walking away from meetings and going, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And AI is really helping us with that too. So we get the meeting notes now and they are super thorough and that's great, but we didn't touch them. So the
Right.
problem there is that you can have the most beautiful notes ever. If you didn't actually become a part of the learning process, not going to remember any of the things that it tells you to do. So that's where you have to come in and go, okay, here, I'm going to circle these. I'm going to physically circle them, or I'm going to highlight them on my computer, or whatever it is. And so as leaders, we have to show people that's how things are done instead of assuming they know. Because again, going back to Miss Brown, we cannot assume. It's not okay to assume. All that does is make us look pretty stupid.
It does. And I've started doing that, not the assuming part. I started,
Good, good. I'm
yeah,
glad to hear
no.
it.
I've started doing the highlighting parts. What I'll do is if we have notes, and I use AI, I love Copilot.
Oh,
And
yeah, no,
when
it's
we're trying,
great.
it's great, but I'll go and whatever people need to do, I'll highlight in yellow before I send the notes out. Because again, the nice thing about Copilot is it takes great notes. The bad thing is the notes are like a book. And
Yeah.
so we're not working with computers and these people aren't going to go scan everything for their name. So let's make it very visible for them. But back to your other point, I've always learned that if nobody's accountable for it, it's never going to get done. And if multiple people's names are on it, it's never going to get done because somebody's always going to assume somebody else is doing it. And then getting back to what you originally talked, where when you now play to people's strengths, you can't even just assume that, hey, my Slinky person is who would normally do this, but I'm actually going to give it to my magnifying glass because it makes
Yep.
more sense. And so when you don't have that clarity, then you go back to what you said, the assumptions, and you go back to all of these things where I'm going to walk away as the leader thinking everybody's clear and I haven't been clear with my communication. And then I'm going to be pissed in a week when things aren't done because I haven't done my job. And my issue with all of that is the reaction of most leaders. I won't say, 90% of them, but, at least 60 to 70% of them are, this is a Christie issue. This isn't a me issue. Like, we were
Right.
all in there. Why didn't she understand? I don't
Right.
sit there and reflect and go, could I have been clearer and helped the team through this? And then I haven't made a psychologically safe environment. And so nobody's willing to tell me the truth.
Yep. It is a beautiful circle.
It is.
Like this is a continuous improvement model, if ever there
Yes.
was one. And I think everything you just said could relate to any industry. If you're thinking about who's listening right now, I am sure all of you have had an experience just like what Josh just
Yeah.
described. And it doesn't have to be that way. If we know better, we need to do better. The problem is the knowing doing gap is more of a chasm.
Right.
We know we should be a little more present in meetings, or we should take better notes, or we should whatever. But do we actually do that? No. And
Mm.
so the transition has to come in practice. So it actually takes 18 times of doing something in front of others to master it.
Mm.
But what happens is we hear something like this and we're like, you know what? She's right. I'm going to try that. And I'm going to send out an email to my team before the next meeting. Okay, great. And you do it once and it's a little awkward and nobody opens the email and you're like, forget it. I'm never doing that again. That was
Right.
stupid. You got to keep trying. You got to do it 18 times. Now, you're going to be better by the second time and pretty good by the sixth time. It's the mastery part that takes a little while. So that's what I would encourage people to remember today is if you want more productive joy. So we haven't defined it yet and it's on purpose. I've had 250 episodes and in every single episode I get a different definition. But ultimately productive joy is where the fun meets action, where the thing that brings you that light up inside part of you actually produces something. So when you think about productive joy, if you want to have more success, however you're defining success at work, then you have to find the joy and you have to turn the joy into action. And that's the part that's personal. We can't do that for our people, but we certainly can create the conditions where people can find it.
And then that goes back to getting to know the people in the first place, because then we can be intentional about how we do that. And
Yep.
everybody's different. So I get it, right? My first reaction to this was it blows my mind how others don't understand this, but there's
Right?
plenty of things that I don't understand in other areas. But in my experience, my background's manufacturing and machines are complicated. And a lot of the things we do are complicated. But I am a firm believer, based on what I've seen, that happy, appreciated teams that I show gratitude to, that we celebrate successes, that we get to know the people and we ask about their family and we ask about how the days are, and then we allocate work to their strengths, they will produce 10 out of 10 times better than more skilled people who don't have those conditions.
100%. 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I have not found an example where that wasn't true. And I think there are certain companies that have figured some of this out. Like I think about Google
Mm.
and the fact that they are thoughtful about having a day to play. Like their people get paid for a full day to innovate. We don't do that in a lot of places, but we know that it's effective. So it goes back to the knowing doing gap. Now that you know better, what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to say, okay, that was nice, yay, next episode? Or are you going to stop for a minute and go, do I make it safe for my people? When was the last time we had fun at work? What am I doing to be memorable these days? Or that was really illogical, terribly executed. Oops. So that's my challenge for people is that now that you know better, what's the one thing you're going to grab onto that'll help you do better? Because otherwise, you really did just waste the last 25 minutes of your time. And I don't think that's necessary. So, my guess is that your listening audience are people who want to improve their leadership practices. So grab one. What
Right.
one thing? You don't have to be safe, logical, fun, and memorable today. Which one are you going to
Yeah.
do? And if none of those sound good, then just create some productive joy. And that could be as simple as going for a walk during your lunch break, because that produces oxygen that gives you a little bit more fun in your lungs. Right?
Exactly.
I think we overcomplicate things sometimes and we think, oh, okay, if it's not flashy and exciting, then it must not work. And that's just not true.
I've likened this recently, for whatever reason, leadership to weight loss. If I'm going to go on a diet, so many people are like, hey, I'm going to go in a calorie deficit and I ate less today. So I should lose like 10 pounds tomorrow. And it
Yeah.
doesn't happen. And they're like,
Nope.
forget this. Why be miserable and eat things I don't want to eat if it's not going to work? And everybody wants the immediate gratification. And I
Yes.
think you said it best where yes, you want to go do this and don't eat the elephant. Take one bite at a time, pick
Yep.
one thing, whether it's the examples you gave or something else, but keep eating and stick to it and just know it takes 18 times
Yeah.
and you're going to get better. And you hope that every day you're 1% better than you were today, but don't give up. And that's the thing that I see happens the most is that people don't see the results and they just immediately give up and go on to something else.
Yeah, definitely. So I have to go back to your eating an elephant analogy because I have used that with my kids their entire lives. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yep.
But I have added a second phrase to it, and I
Oh,
think
great.
it's an important one. So there's really only one effective way to eat an elephant, and that's one bite at a time.
Mhm.
However, it's a whole lot easier to do with friends. So we often isolate ourselves and we think, I have to eat this entire elephant by myself. No, you don't. You have a whole team around you that can help, and you guys can strategize and you can decide if you want to start at the front or the back or what you want to do. You have to let some of it digest for a little while. I was a science teacher. I could be really gross about this. I won't.
Yeah.
But the idea is when we surround ourselves with people who think differently than us, who have that diversity of thought, and the paperclips, magnifying glasses, teddy bears, and slinkies are all together, then all of a sudden you get the best possible product.
Right.
So the challenge is, how do I think? Step one. How do other people think? Step two. And how can I create the most dynamic team possible so we're the Avengers instead of just being single superheroes? So there's the mic drop moment. Go figure out who's on your team and then look for the holes, the gaps, and fill them.
And I love what you just what you just said. The Marvel movie fan of me is, yeah, of course, because no one person could defeat things that the Avengers went and fought. You have to have that diverse team, and so often leaders surround themselves with people who are like them because
Yes.
they want to hear the things that they think. They want to hear support of the way that they think, but those are not going to be your successful leaders.
No, those are just the comfortable ones. That when you are all in a single-minded way of being, your results are going to be very one-dimensional. And I
Right.
don't think anybody wants one-dimensional results. So, regardless of the industry you're in or the position that you're in, do you know the people around you? Do you know what they're good at? Are you able to bring that out in them and give them things, tasks, or ideas that will help that part of them thrive? And then if not, how can you fill those gaps? Because the gaps need to be filled. So if you have
Right.
a team full of teddy bears and you don't have anybody who leads from the teddy bear space, you have a big problem on your
Right.
hands. So you've got to recognize, oh, nope, that is not my strength. And it doesn't need to be. I think that's the other part is we don't have to be good at everything. We can't. We can be okay at everything. So anytime I've done this personality test with people, somebody in the room has said, I'm all four. And I would agree. We are all four at some
Mhm.
point.
Yep.
However, if we're trying to be good at all four, we're going to fail. Where do
Right.
you thrive? That's where you're leaning in, and then surround yourself with other people. So if you haven't heard my TEDx, which I'm going to guess most of these friends haven't, go look it up. Just type in my name and TED, and you'll find it, because I think it would be a great thing to watch with your team and then say, okay, guys, which one are we? And
Mhm.
how can we make sure we're filling in the gaps?
Perfect. I love that. And as we wrap up, I'd love to hear any final thoughts that you have, but please give yourself a plug for your book, your podcast, and your TEDx, because my feeling is that what I'm hearing here, everybody's going to want to learn more. And so please, final thoughts, but also make sure you add those in as well.
Okay, I hope so. I hope people would want to find me. So if you want to find me, there are a couple different ways. I'm the CEO of Intentionality Group. And what we do, as mentioned before, is we help bridge gaps for organizations and for individuals. You can listen to my podcast, which is Productive Joy. It's anywhere and everywhere that you can listen to a podcast. And what happens there is I get to interview all my brilliant friends. And that's a lot of fun. As Josh, it's a lot of fun to get to know some really cool humans. So that's what Productive Joy would do. And then you can find me on any socials. It's just Dr. Christie McMullen. I'd love for you to follow me on LinkedIn and just drop me a line and just say, hey, I'm interested in fill in the blank. And I would love to see if I can help or find somebody who could. So my final thought for today is you heard a whole bunch of things, and those things are all applicable to some part of your life. So I want you to narrow it down a little bit and pick a target. Maybe your target is I want to do better about communicating with my spouse, or I want to do better about communicating with my team. And then I want you to pick one thing. Are you going to make it safe? You're going to make it logical, you're going to make it fun, or you're going to make it memorable. You are probably already good at one or two of those, but I need you to pick one you're not so good at and practice, and then give yourself some grace when it's not perfect from the beginning. There's your parting thought. Josh, what do you think?
I love it. I think it's great making sure everybody gives themselves the grace. And you said, I love the term you use, failure parties, because I always say celebrate failure because you're going to fail at some point, especially when you do something new. And wise words that I hope everybody kind of leaves here and takes advantage of. I love that. I will make sure also, in addition to everything that you just said, that I know you've sent me the links. I'll have all the links to your social and your book and everything in the post for the podcast and in the YouTube page when we post the episode. And if anybody ever has any issues trying to get a hold of Dr. McMullen, you obviously know my email, leadingquarters@gmail.com. You can email me. I'll try to help get you guys together. You can obviously find this on all the podcast platforms, just like your podcast, and on the YouTube page at Leading Quarters, or on our Instagram at Leading Quarters. And contact us, contact Dr. McMullen directly, or again, get a hold of me and we'll get you all in touch. But truly, thank you again. It's a topic near and dear to my heart because, as we've talked, this is, to me, the important stuff. And I'm going to leave here and evaluate. I already kind of have a feeling of what I am, but I'm going to evaluate my 4 options and see where my strengths are, where I need to go, maybe do a little work. But I really enjoyed everything that we talked about. So I truly appreciate your time today.
Me too, Josh. This was a genuine pleasure. Thank you so much for making it so comfortable.